Greetings and welcome to Yarnspirations.com. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Wedge It crochet blanket. This is a very simple to stitch piece, mostly double crochet, and the only even vaguely tricky bit is the color changes, which we're going to take a look at in this video. To get started, you'll need Patons Décor yarn in 6 colors. And we have Aran, Pale Rose, New Lilac, Pale Oceanside, Rich Oceanside, and Plum in the model that we have used on camera. You'll need a crochet hook, size H8, 5mm, or the size needed to obtain gauge, and that's all there is to it. This is a great piece that will give you a big pop of color. It's very graphic and will go with any number of style of rooms. So let's take a look at those color changes. Now, the stitching on this blanket is very simple. It is primarily double crochet. What makes it interesting is the color work. So we're going to talk about that in this video. But first I want to talk about getting started. Now it says chain 186 loosely. And the reason we do that is we don't want the bottom of the blanket to draw in. Now, you can think about crocheting loosely, which works for some people. Some people tend to fall immediately back into their natural gauge, so that doesn't work for everybody. Alternatively, you could go up a hook size. So if you're using the H8 5mm hook that we recommended, if that's the size you need to obtain gauge, maybe go up to an I9 5.5mm just to give yourself some room in that chain so it doesn't pull in. The other thing you can do to make sure that that first row is not too tight, and I know I talk about this all the time, but I do think it's an important point, particularly for projects like this. Most of us were taught to crochet our foundation row in the front or the V of the chain, but if you work in the back or the bump of the chain, you get an edging when you've stitched that is way more elastic. See how much nicer that is? It doesn't pull in on the bottom, it's not too tight. So I know I say this all the time, but even if you've never tried it before, this might be a terrific project to start with. So you're working in the back or the bump of the chain instead of the front or the V. So I'm just finishing up my first row, which was all in the same color. And then I'm going to need to change color at the end of this row. So when one changes color in crochet, one needs to make sure that the last yarn over of the last stitch in the old color is in the new color. So this is the color I'm changing to. I'm not going to tie a knot or anything like that. I can just leave a long tail, maybe 6 to 8 inches and 15-20 centimeters. I can weave that in later. So I'm just going to pull up a fold and make that last yarn over in the last stitch in the old color in the new color. Turn and chain 3. Remember, I'm just going to leave that little tail, because I can always weave that in later. Now, let's take a look at the second row. With A, which is my beige, chain 3, which we just did, double crochet in each of next 7. Drop A, join B. Now B is what I made the first row with. So I'm going to need B over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is where my next B stitch is going to be. But the end is way over here. So instead of having to cut it and make 12,000 ends to weave in at the end of this color work project, what I'm going to do is just simply crochet over it. I'm going to crochet over the color that I'm not using, not all the way till the end, but only as far as I'm going to need it, so that when I need it, it's right there and I am not going to have to cut it and make additional tails to weave in. Hang on there, I split my yarn a little bit. Oh my goodness, I'm splitty today. Remember, I tension my yarn a little oddly. You will, of course, tension your yarn the way that you do, and all shall be well. Let me count. So there's my chain 3, and then it said 7 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, one more. So this will be my last one in the old color So my very last yarn over, which is the second one because I'm doing double crochet, I'm going to bring that yarn up and it's right there waiting for me. I'm going to finish that stitch, and basically that just means the hat meets the shoes. You know, the reason we do this is on the, here you can see it specifically on the next stitch. If you don't do that last yarn over in the new color, what happens is you wind up with a top that doesn't match the bottom. It's just a neatness thing. Now I put that stitch in there to talk about the top and the bottom of the stitch matching. I'm going to pop it out because I want to talk about tracking the yarn. As you look at this pattern, and you're just going to trust me on the math because I've done it, the color change happens, it moves by 8 stitches on every row, so 16 stitches every 2 rows. So I know that coming back I'm going to need this color of yarn 8 stitches to the left of where it is right now. So once again, instead of cutting and weaving, what I want to do is I want to stitch over the A color, but only for 8 stitches. I don't need to take it all the way down to the end. And this is just a matter of, I know where I'm going to need it next, and I'm telling you where you're going to need it next. So we're just going to stitch over the A color for 8 stitches. So remember, this is not a color change. I just know I'm going to need it here later. So I've stitched over it for 8 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to give it just the most gentle little tug. I don't want to pull it too tight because it will draw in, and I don't want that to happen. But I also don't want it so loose that it's real obvious that it's there. This is very, you can barely see that. And again, the only reason I'm doing that is to make sure that when I come back, the yarn is where I need it to be. So I'm going to continue on in the, in this case, the B color to the end of the row, and then I'm going to turn and come back. I'm going to count the number of stitches according to the pattern. In my case, it'll be a few less, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish this row, begin the next one, and I'll meet you back here at the next color change. So here I am working on the 3rd row. I've done my counting, and like I said, mine's a little bit smaller than yours, but in your case you will double crochet in each of the next 167 double crochets, and then we're going to want the A, and here's the A waiting for us. So once again, in the last stitch of the old color, the last yarn over is the new color. So I'm just going to bring that up because it's sitting there waiting for me. And then I will go ahead and finish the row in the A color. Now we do have a float here. This is not absolutely necessary, but to make it look a little neater and a little less obvious, what I like to do on the next stitch, I want to work around that float. So you can see I've inserted my hook under the 2 legs of the stitch, but also under that float. And then it's just a little less obvious there. Now you could also have brought it up on the back of the work, but then of course you'd see it on the other side. So you are going to see a tiny bit of float, but by working over it the way I just did, it will be a lot less problems. Now I don't have to work over the rose color because I don't need it at the end. I know that I am going to work in this color all the way to the end of the row, and when I come back, my color change is going to move 8 stitches in this direction because that's the direction the color change is going in. So all I have to do right now is finish this row, and then the beginning of the 4th row, it says with A, which is the light color, chain 3 double crochet in each of next 23 double crochets, drop A, join B. And so I know that the B wants to get there. So once again, this is a right side row I'm not bringing any yarn with me because I don't need to. On the wrong side row, which we're just coming up to, is where I'm going to track the yarn. So I'm going to finish this row and do the first few stitches of the next row, and we'll take a look at moving that yarn with us one more time. So I'm on the 4th row and I have made 15 of the 23 double crochets I'm supposed to, and once again I know that I'm going to need that yarn 8 stitches to the left. So this is the instance in which I'm just going to crochet over it until I need it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Give it a gentle little tug. Last yarn over of the last stitch in the old color is the new color. And now I know that I'm going to need the A color 8 stitches to the left later, so I'm going to go over it for 8 stitches just like we did the last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Double count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, this is not a color change, but at this point I can drop the A color. Now, I put it to the back of the work, and earlier when we showed it on camera, then that brought the float up in front of me because I just think it's easier to see. And I said, if you wanted to, you could keep that on the other side of the work. You could bring the yarn to this way. It doesn't matter which one you do, but it does matter that you are internally consistent. So if you put it to the back at this point, put it to the back every single time. If you put it to the front at this point, put it to the front every single time. It's just one of those tiny little things that makes a, it's the devil in the details, you know? It's one of those little details that just makes your work look neater. So once again, I'm going to keep following along in the pattern. I'm going to finish. When I come back, I know that I'm going to need my A color here, and it's going to be there. So on the wrong side rows, this is a wrong side row, is when I have to pay attention to tracking the yarn to where I need it, to crocheting over it. On the right side rows, I don't have to worry about it because of the prep I did on the wrong side rows, the yarn's already there waiting for me. So you're going to continue on following the pattern, and basically once you get the hang of these color changes, it's very simple. You're just doing the same color change over and over, adding a different pop of color each time. So each wedge, as it were, is the same instructions as the wedge before. It's just going to have a different color in it. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about the color changes for the Wedge It crochet blanket. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life. Thank you so much for joining us here on Yarnspirations.com. We look forward to seeing you again real soon.